Welcome to the Truckers Network radio show on TNCRadio.live, where we offer the news, information, traffic, weather, sports, and entertainment our commercial drivers want and need. As many drivers know, a lot of things are impacting the trucking industry. Inflation, diesel shortages, supply chain disruptions are just some of the trends that are especially impacting produce haulers. Cold chain disruptions are impacting shippers as well as growers, and there are multiple issues facing SMB freight that are raising prices, which will ultimately hurt consumers. It's all the way down the chain. We wanted to discuss all of these trends and the best way to weather the storm, especially with President Biden's trucking action plan. Today, we have Ivan Momchilov. He's the Director of Capacity with Highway Haul. Highway Haul is building a next-generation digital freight platform that connects shippers directly with truckers by eliminating intermediary friction, introducing end-to-end digital applications, and building advanced cold chain compliance. Welcome, Ivan. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Hi, Shelley. Thank you so much for having me.
Before we talk about the current trends, I thought maybe you could tell us a little bit more about Highway Haul and what it does. The description sounds really interesting, but maybe if you could put it in driver terms, what does all that mean?
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, thank you once again for having me. As you mentioned, I'm the Director of Capacity here at Highway Haul. We are a digital freight platform that really found its roots in the produce industry roughly 4 years ago. We specialize in moving fresh produce alongside the southern border, and we truly want to digitalize the whole experience between the growers, the packers, and specifically our truck drivers that are located in some of these communities along Texas, along California, down in Florida.
That sounds like something that's definitely needed. What are some of the issues? There's so many things I've been hearing on the news. It's impacting the growers. It's impacting the shippers.
There's multiple, right? Where do we begin when it comes to that? And I think let's address the elephant in the room. What is really going on with the volumes, right? What is going on with the opportunity to even haul any freight out of some of these markets? Before even getting into any of the climate issues that we've been seeing with harvesting out in California, or even some of the crossings through Mexico. I think the elephant in the room is what is happening with the volumes and where are we heading into Q4, quote unquote, that peak season that we traditionally experience year over year. I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we found across the board, speaking to some of our carrier partners, is how do we ensure that they're really utilizing their entire capacity day after day, week after week, running the same type of routes, returning them home on time and doing it all over again.
I've been hearing horror stories that food prices are going to shoot through the roof in a few months. Is that a possibility?
Of course, a possibility. I think you have to look at the whole picture, right, from an economic level, right? It's not simply just supply and demand, but you're looking at the diesel prices as well and how that is affecting the trucker and how that is affecting the final cost of the retailer. We are in unique times, especially with everything going on overseas, right, in Ukraine, and trying to find that balance between, how do we combat inflation? How do we continue to grow our businesses? Are we heading into a recession? What does that mean to a trucker, to a consumer, to the general family out there that's buying groceries at the store, right? I think we've seen an uptick in prices across the board, across a couple different commodities.
Oh, yeah.
And there's just a high level of uncertainty of where things might lead us to into the busy season as well.
Mm-hmm. And diesel shortages have been going on for quite a while this year.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's also a very common issue that we've observed everywhere. It's not just Highway Haul, it's everybody. Everybody's experiencing the same thing. It's even you at the pump, in your family, anybody that is traveling anywhere is seeing that uptick in diesel prices. And even though they subsided a little bit over the last couple of months, everything is pointing to another increase going into the next couple of months. So it's really important to really figure out how are we going to manage some of those times, whether that will be with freight, some of those truckers. I know a lot of on the customer side are using breakthrough fuel to sometimes combat some of that volatility, but unfortunately, not a lot of that is translated directly to the smaller truck, right? I think when it comes to freight rates, a lot of the smaller fleets are even if they're dedicating, they're looking at an all-in cost. But when there's a volatility in the fuel prices, there's really not much of a protection unless they do set themselves up on a breakthrough fuel schedule with their digital providers or shippers and things of that nature.
I know the refinery shut down for service in the fall because typically right before the cold spell sets in, that's the best time for them to do that. So that's going to elevate the diesel prices right now.
Correct. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that makes it tough for shippers, for owner operators. Every time they turn around, and it depends on what state they're in.
Yeah.
Because fuel prices vary.
Absolutely. I mean, I think you see the biggest difference with coast to coast rate, right? Diesel price in California versus the one in Texas versus the one in the Midwest. Mm-hmm. So it's you have to be very strategic to ensure that you're truly capturing the best value for your dollar, and really optimizing your routes that way as well.
Sure. And certainly consumers are going to feel it. Our bread basket, at least for produce, California is huge. And if you've got freight coming out of California and the diesel prices are higher there, it's going to be passed on to the consumer.
Absolutely. And I think some of the struggles that we've been seeing over the last couple of months specifically, it's been an odd year for California outbound. It's been an odd year for the produce volumes, even out of Fresno, out of the Bakersfield area. I think I was reading they were down about 30 to 40% in July and August. But not only do you have high fuel prices, but then you're also, you don't see the same volume of freight that is being shipped. And so there's a lot more competition out there from other providers and other asset-based carriers that are essentially driving some of these prices down, which is really not helping anybody at the end of the day.
Is that unusual? Is a trend?
It's part of, I believe, the freight cycle that we're currently in. I think you're always playing that tug of war between spot and contracted freight volumes. It is all supply and demand, right? It's how much freight is there available against the capacity that's available in that area to go to a specific area. And I think when we talk about climate changes, there's just less yield of production of produce, right? What happened over the last couple of years, we saw more and more smaller fleets adding a couple extra trailers. The owner operators numbers were jumping a little bit. And, while people were adding additional capacity, now we're running into a period where the demand, is just not matching up. So what you probably see is some type of transition between some of the smaller fleets heading into a bigger capacity or a bigger carrier provider to just really be able to obtain that stability in freight.
Who would you say, or what is the biggest elephant in the room in terms of cold chain disruptions?
Yeah, I think there's just lack of visibility across the board. And I think proper planning would really just address some of the issues that we're running into because, our trucking partners that are located near the border cities, whether that would be down in McAllen or Laredo and even around the border with Arizona, they're dependent on a lot of that freight that comes through Mexico, a lot of that produce that is crossing over depending on the season. So when there's an effect in the visibility of when that might cross, was there a storm in Mexico a couple of weeks ago? How is that affecting the production and really the volumes that are pushing through some of those cities? That affects the trucker every single day, really having that visibility of how do I anticipate what kind of volumes am I looking into? Do I have anything contracted with a partner that gives me constant stream of freight from a specific region to keep my trucks moving? Because guess what? The insurance payment is going to keep coming every month. Fuel prices keep increasing, right? There's fixed costs that we need to address. And the problem is that some of those costs were locked in months ago and years ago. And, unfortunately, some of the freight volumes are not matching up to offset some of these increasing costs for the truckers.
Is there any way that could change? Because people have to be paid properly. And
absolutely. And
how could it change?
I think at the end of the day, this all starts with a relationship, right? We're in a relationship business where, people want to work with people. We're here to do exactly that, but also digitalize the whole experience. We want to make sure that, if you're hauling for us, you are, there's visibility, number one, from a shipper standpoint, and you understand exactly what is going to be your wait time, right? When are you going to how are you going to utilize your hours of service? Anything from uploading your bill digitally to your POD, you want a faster payment, you want to reload. There's a lot of intricacies to making sure that we resolve some of these problems together. But it all starts with that relationship and that trust, and that's what we do. We want to focus on some of those smaller fleets, owner operators, less than 5 to 10 trucks. They really need that partnership and that consistent volume coming out of specific areas for them. And we want to lock in those contracts with them. They don't have the ability to go to a big shipper. They don't have the ability to really negotiate some of those freight rates for a 3 or 6 month contract. So this is where we want to step in and really provide that opportunity for everybody out there.
So you're giving them some of the clout that they lack based on their size.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think there's also, even when we talk about maintenance, right? How many of the smaller fleets actually have the discounts to help them run their fleet properly, and their any small repair or even tires, right? Like those are little things that the bigger you are, the bigger discounts you're going to get, the lower your operating cost is going to be. And not everybody has that opportunity, unfortunately.
No, they really don't.
And equipment is really an issue right now, and especially the parts.
Yeah.
So
shortages of parts. I mean, it's just one thing after another.
Yeah.
It's like trying to plan is a logistical nightmare. So what your company's offering is definitely a real boon to the industry. And we're thankful to have you doing this sort of thing. And of course, we want to know more about what you do. We do have to go to break, though. You're listening to the Truckers Network radio show on TNCRadio.live. I'm talking with Ivan Momchilov. He's the Director of Capacity at Highway Love. We're going to be back in a few minutes with more great information, so definitely stay tuned to TNCRadio.live. TNCRadio.live is proud to carry the Steve Summers Overnight Drive Show. TNCRadio.live is dedicated to commercial drivers. We offer the news, traffic, and weather you need, and the entertainment, sports, talk, music, and celebrity interviews you want to hear 24/7. We have original shows and trucker podcasts that feature some of your favorites, like Ice Road Alex Debogorski and America's Truckin' Sweetheart Marcia Campbell. TNCRadio.live is convenient and designed for professional drivers. The best part is we're free, and you can listen anywhere you are on the road. With just one tap, you can tune into Steve Summers and us right on your phone. Simply download our app by going to app.tncradio.live. That's app.tncradio.live. Welcome back to the Truckers Network radio show on TNCRadio.live. I'm Shelley Johnson, and I'm talking with Ivan Momchilov. He's the Director of Capacity with Highway Haul. He's got some great insight into what's going on with the crazy trends in transportation, especially the cold chain disruptions and how things are impacting the produce and shippers and everybody else. So, Ivan, what is Highway Haul doing to help trucking companies and shippers deal with all these fluctuating trends and market instability we're dealing with?
Yeah, great question, Shelley. And, I think the number one thing is we listen. We listen to truckers. I think even when it comes to our team, there's a ton of experience in the industry, specifically from an asset-based side as well. We really want to improve the quality of life. We want to really improve the day-to-day and all the little nuances that truckers might be facing when it comes to, finding the right freight, finding tours for them, and really helping them out in any way possible. I think obviously as being focused in mostly produce, most of our freight is coming out of the border cities, is coming out of the Texas, California, Arizona, Florida areas. And one of the biggest issues we've seen is how do we return those truckers back? How do we tour these carriers and these drivers where, they know exactly what they're doing after they're completing their first load, their second load? What day do we need to get them back to their home? From a network optimization, this is the main thing that we're specifically focusing on, is ensuring that the type of freight that we offer on our platform makes sense for the trucker, makes sense for the driver, makes sense for the entire operation when it comes to managing their hours of service, to ensuring that we're reducing their empty miles and they're not constantly looking for freight to complete their next tour and things like that.
Oh, yeah, that costs money, no doubt. And certainly timely shipment. Planning is so essential. Produce is time sensitive.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, 50% of any produce is really spent on the truck. So it's also very, there's some risk that associated with it, right? Making sure that our equipment is up to date, making sure the temperature and monitoring and everything is according to what our expectations are for the specific commodity. So it is important to ensure that our carriers and our partners are aligned with all of our customer expectations. But at the same time, we do what we can to help them out and ensure that they're growing their business alongside with us. Because at the end of the day, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for our carrier partners, and we want to make sure that we address all of their concerns and really help them grow their business alongside with us.
Absolutely. So how does that work exactly if there's spoilage? Is the shipper responsible for that, or is there an acceptable percentage? Because I'm sure not all the produce makes it there in the best of shape.
Yeah, unfortunately, it is part of the industry, and I think over the last couple of years, there's been a tremendous amount of technology and research and innovation when it comes to even the quality control of the product that is being loaded of the truck. I was just down in Orlando the last few days for the Produce and Floral Show, and there was some amazing technologies being brought out when it comes to sorting and then really recognizing patches on, say, oranges or lemons or any kind of deterioration of that product before it even makes it onto a truck. Now, I wouldn't say that there's a specific percentage, right? But I think it's common depending on multiple conditions. I think at the end of the day, though, we set the expectations, and there's a vetting process when it comes to is it anybody's fault at all, or is that just the quality of the product that was shipped? And it really all that matters is how do we handle the situation after that, right? Because it's very common. You might get a case rejected, you might get a pallet rejected, but what are the next steps, right? How do we work through these things? I think some of the biggest challenges that we've seen are just the lack of communication sometimes to some of these drivers and truckers, and having that understanding that we know you're on the clock, you have another pickup to make, right? We want to make sure that we provide you that disposition or that second location where we can move on with our life and really just handle the rejection the proper way. So yeah, it's just all about the process, right? What kind of process are we all following and making sure that we're adhering to?
There's so many cogs in the wheel. And then when you have the market instability and all the weird variabilities that have hit us the past couple of years, that's got to be really hard to plan.
It is, and I think this is on us though, right? This is my job to educate our partners on some of those market volatilities that we keep talking about, right? Like maybe last year it was a great year for you to be in having a specific tour, and then there's something that's going on in the market nowadays where you might have to pivot your business model, right? There might be a different opportunity for your capacity that was different than last year, just based on the market conditions. So that. We educate, we provide that information, provide that data and analytics to what we're seeing from a supply standpoint and what our customer partners are, planning or anticipating for the near future.
What are some of the things that you're advising your customers on? Well, what is some of the market volatility that they need to be mindful of so that they can prepare for it?
I think, just making sure that you stay in tune with what's going on around the country, right? When it comes to, the big buzz last year was all the port congestions on the West Coast, right? And I think being aware of that and knowing that, hey, right, we are seeing an influx of shipments or container ships on one side of the country. Well, what are you going to do about it, right? You're going to probably start transitioning to the Gulf. You're going to try transitioning to the East Coast. And I think we finally have come that full circle where you're seeing that shift on the East Coast market coming in right now. And there's now you're starting to see a little bit of that congestion over there, which obviously is going to tell you that there's going to be a surplus of freight that is probably coming out of the East Coast. What does that mean to you as a trucker, right? Does that mean I'm going to have more options of freight or less options of freight, right? And how am I going to get to the East Coast if I want to reposition my truck to attack some of those volumes? So generally speaking, just being aware of some of those, I guess, major changes that are affecting the markets each and every day, but also recognizing when, if you're relying on, for example, spot business and a little bit less a little less organized maybe with the type of freight that's being hauled, using that as an opportunity to really partner up with other providers that can provide you that consistency. And I think that's what everybody wants at the end of the day, is having that consistency and in what you're hauling, the type of pay that you're getting, right? We're coming up on holiday season. I think everybody's been waiting for that peak, right? Everybody's waiting for a little bit of a surcharge on the regular rates. And we know that, and then everybody's preparing for the same thing. So again, comes down to the relationship being open and honest, and really communicating what your plans are and how we can partner up in the future.
Sure. Haven't rates historically in the past year or so kind of dropped? They were higher. And that's not conducive to fight the inflationary conditions that shippers are dealing with.
Yeah. And I think, right, the COVID years were a little bit of a abnormality. It wasn't anything normal we've ever seen. Actually, when COVID and everything started, everything plummeted at first before it started getting, extremely busy. And I think you saw that boom in e-commerce and imports and people staying at home and ordering more durable goods and things of that nature. And now that this is kind of past, we're seeing that normality a little bit, right? The inventory levels are high across the board. So what we're seeing is, now the shorter hauls are becoming more predominant, right? I think we're seeing a lot of transfers from a customer standpoint. There's less coming in, and with inflation being so high, people are saving their money. They're going to shop a little bit less. They're spending more of their money on services versus durable goods, and just part of the cycle. So when it comes to rates, we have to remember where we started before COVID, how much they've increased over the last 2 years, and how they're adjusting now and almost correcting themselves year over year. I don't think we've hit bottom yet, but I do think that this is part of trucking, right? I think we've observed it multiple times. The only difference is maybe now you're seeing it a little more frequent with some of those waves coming in and out.
And with hours of service going back to the way they were, that's going to impact things as well.
Yeah, of course. And I think there's been a lot of adjustments even with the hours of service, right? I think it's a very big pain point for a lot of our truckers is I'm spending 7, 8, 9 hours waiting to get loaded or waiting to get offloaded. I'm jeopardizing that delivery or that pickup because of delays. And obviously a lot of companies are pivoting to the drop trailer model, right? Just spot a couple trailers at your consistent shippers and, fully utilize those hours just by pulling in and out. Yeah. So I think we found ways to adjust no matter what's thrown at us. So,
oh my goodness, that's all drivers and shippers do, is constantly adjust. They have chameleons, don't they? And changing here, changing there.
Yeah, all pun intended, changing gears all day long.
There you go. Absolutely. We have to go to break here, Ivan. I want to unpack some more information here and more about what your company actually does to help everybody. This is a very valuable service that you provide. You're listening to the Truckers Network radio show on tncradio.live. I'm talking with Ivan Momchilov. He's the Director of Capacity with Highway Haul. Stay tuned for more great information coming up. Industry movement Trucking Moves America Forward is telling the story of the industry. Our safety champions, the women of trucking, independent contractors, the next generation of truckers, and more. Help us promote the best of our industry. Share your story and what you love about trucking. Share images of a moment you're proud of. And join us on social media. Learn more at truckingmovesamerica.com. Welcome back to the Truckers Network radio show on tncradio.live. I'm Shelley Johnson, and I'm talking with Ivan Momchilov. He's the Director of Capacity with Highway Haul. Ivan, I thought maybe you could walk us through how you work with a carrier. What exactly do you do for them as a client?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, let's back it up a little bit, right? So I have a couple regionalized teams, and they're very, very specific to the type of outbound points that we have where most of our freight is originating. So, our whole idea is really just to digitalize that experience for the trucker, for the driver, and make it as touchless as possible, eliminate some of the additional calls that you might be getting from a typical or traditional 3PL or logistics provider. So we have a specialized team that really wants to partner up with capacity and carriers in some of those key areas. And once we really get you and introduce you to our platform, we want to leave it up to you to really dictate the pace of how we operate, right? So we show you our entire load board. We show you all the freight that we have available for numerous days out. You're able to pre-book your own freight. You're able to assign your own drivers. We have a driver's app where the driver can get all the information about their freight, and we have a portal where the dispatcher or the owner of the company can really delegate the shipments that they pick and choose on their own, or they're contracting directly through us. And I think this is probably the biggest value proposition that we want to provide is, we want to provide that freight for you specifically and that consistency, right? We know where most of our highest volumes are coming out of. We know our sailing schedules. We know how many shipments per week and per month or whatever the case may be. And we want to let you run your business through our platform that way, right? So we have a dedicated team that really helps source the right truck, invest the right capacity based on our customers' KPIs. But from that point on, we want to leave it up to the trucker and the carrier to really dictate their load volumes, upload all their PODs, their BOLs, set up their payment profiles, and just ensure that everything is just done digitally. But if there aren't any issues, there is a backend support that is able to provide any help that they might seek, just phone call away or even an email.
Is that 24/7?
24/7.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Yeah, because you never know when you have to make that.
Never know when it's going to happen. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So how do you work with the freight aspect of it?
Well, as I mentioned, right, well, we started this out of all the produce markets, right? So a lot of our shipments are McAllen-based, Laredo-based. Right now, Arizona is about to start as well. So it all starts with the freight, right? But, we really need to partner up with our customers as well to ensure that we can hit their KPIs and ensure that we can service their freight in the best way possible. So this is where the capacity team really comes in and sources the right truck or the right carrier. We almost think just like a shipper, right? You have your routing guide, you have your set of carriers that are your primary carrier that is hauling that specific lane way based on the contract that we're setting up forward. We have a secondary or third or whatever the case may be. But we want to be very specific and very focused on the capacity that we assign and move specific to the product or specific customer. It is also then our job to ensure that we return those trucks back, right? It's not just the headway that we're worried about. We want to make sure that you start your week off from your head location, but at the same time, you might have to do your reset, you do a short haul after that, and then you need the back haul bring you back home. So we want to provide all of that to a trucker, is that peace of mind that we listen to your needs. We understand your utilization. We understand some of your pain points, and we really want to build that network from a customer standpoint that aligns with you.
I would imagine what you're providing really offers peace of mind, because with produce, there's so many variabilities. It's a time-sensitive situation, and it's hard to plan.
It is. And you worry about the commodity itself, right? What commodities ship when? What are their peak seasons? What are their volumes? And I think being able to piece all of that together and provide that consistency week in and week out, right? The only thing that's going to change on our end is, right, today you're hauling the broccoli crossing over, tomorrow you're hauling the strawberries, right? So that consistency, that peace of mind is what our mission really is, specifically to the truckers and the carrier.
Absolutely. What are some of the biggest benefits you've heard customers talk about after utilizing your services?
Same truck, same driver. They know my dock workers. They know the loaders. I think that's one of the best feedback that we can get is, it turns into a little community after a while, right? It's the same type of carrier, the same customer, the same driver that comes in every Monday and loads with the same dock worker, and I think eliminating some of that, maybe pressure by not knowing what you're getting yourself into. Maybe it's a new lane or it's a new customer that you're working for and you're not really sure what to expect. I think we'll give anybody some worry, right? But we want to eliminate it. We want to focus on the consistency. We want to listen to the carrier. We want to really provide the type of freight that they're willing to haul, right? And we want to make them part of even the pricing process, right? When a customer is approaching us on a mini RFP or a bid or anything like that, we want the trucker to directly be involved in that on our behalf, essentially.
Which is very, very important. So you're kind of bringing business back to the way it used to be in a lot of ways.
In a lot of ways, yeah. And like I said, I think this all starts with a relationship, but there's a lot of there's a lot of issues that we've been running to doing things a traditional way. Like even with some of our customers that have lived in Excel or lived via an email, we want to give that power to the carrier, to that driver, right, through our app to be able to do anything and everything you can think of, get paid even, but if you do want that connection, that personal connection, we can provide that as well.
So, what are some of the biggest market trends that you're seeing that people should really be mindful of over the next maybe 6 months? I know that there's so many fluctuations right now. It's probably hard to say, but do you see anything on the horizon?
I think we'll probably expect more of the same. As I mentioned, I don't think this peak season is going to be as busy as previous years, and I think people just need to be mindful on this. That especially with the spot market deteriorating month after month, and there might be some sign of life, but at the end of the day, I would always advise making sure that you're setting up some type of contracts, whether that's a monthly dedicated lane or even a 3-month type of deal where you have something to look forward to and you have something guaranteed. Because even outside of freight, there's a lot of uncertainty going on politically, going on economically, right? Mm-hmm. So I think the best way to deal with all that is really truly establish that connection, that personal relationship, and really partner up with providers that are going to be there for you in the thick and thin. Because we all know that this is temporary, and it's only a matter of time until freight volumes start increasing once again, and where the capacity becomes a constraint, which it was the last few years, and it's a constant tug of war back and forth.
It really is. Oh, my goodness. Now, the trucking action plan that President Biden has talked about, how is that impacting the industry? Do you have any stats on that? Or
I think it's a little too early to tell. Like I said, I think we would see adjustments from both sides, from 3PL providers as well as carriers. Only time will tell. That's my take on this for right now. But I think that, whatever challenges we might have faced, and we're just going to figure out a way to adjust to the new laws. And, we've done it once, we'll do it again.
It's interesting. The transportation industry, I think, has to be more resilient than any other because there's so many things that can impact it. And every election cycle, you've got something new. And then
I think that's when you probably see most of the talks around these things is right around the election years, right?
Yes. That's when the politicians start talking about things and say they're going to do something. Whether they do or not, that's another story.
Yeah.
But they talk a good line and make a lot of sense during the election year, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you got to remember, right, with the reducing barriers for the CDLs, right? I think that's one of the biggest thing is how do we ensure that we have the right training, right? And how do we ensure that whoever's behind the wheel truly understands all the rules and regulations, and do they have enough experience, right? It's not easy. It's not easy at all. I'm coming from somebody whose dad used to manage trucks in my previous life. We've seen it, and it's very important to ensure that your safety scores are good. It's very important to make sure your equipment is up to date. There's a lot of tragedies that can happen really in this industry.
Absolutely. And of course, right now, when somebody has their truck down, depending on what year it was made, they are sitting and waiting because they can't get the parts. And that's just,
Yeah. And that's the other issue that we're also running into. You have supply chain issues when it comes to the parts, especially affects the smaller trucker, like I said from the very beginning. Some of the bigger fleets, they don't have those issues, right? I think when it comes to the truck orders and trailers is going to be the new thing that is really going to put a lot of constraints, is really, I think you're seeing the actual trucks right now, they're arriving, some of those, but when it comes to the trailer, there's shortages there, and that's something that we don't talk about enough as well.
And they're under new regulations, especially out in California, aren't they?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. California has always been a little bit different than everybody else, but, it's not just freight constraints, it's equipment constraints, it's parts constraints. It's, you're battling lower contracted rates, lower spot rates against the contracts in these times. So, it seems like you're almost getting hit from 5 or 6 different directions all at the same time.
Yeah, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
awful. Do you see any of those supply chain issues in terms of getting parts? Do you see that easing up at all?
Um, we're on supply chain, so it all depends. I think what happens with some of those manufacturers and how quickly they're able to get those parts across the sea. And like I said, right, we're not seeing the congestions on the West Coast. Now we're seeing it on the East Coast. Does that mean that parts like this are being imported from the East Coast? I don't know, but
Yeah.
it would certainly cause a bottleneck as well. And that's what I mean by we're going to see some shortages on the trailers as well, because that's next on the horizon on top of the parts.
Oh, certainly. And certainly what's going on in Ukraine is really snarling things up.
Yeah, yeah. It's we thought it would probably be simmering down by now, but it's obviously not. And I think that's most of the effect on that is really coming on the diesel prices. And I think specifically though, from a produce standpoint, right, like that was one of the biggest exporters of fertilizer, which affects the growers, which affects the crop that is being harvested. So from that perspective, we saw an effect was really the fertilizer that's being exported, or lack of it, because of what's going on out there.
Well, we've been hearing predictions that the wheat prices are going to be going up because of the fact that fertilizer was scarce and expensive. So you'll see that in the price of bread on the shelves. Yeah. And I don't think that's happened quite yet.
Yeah, and I recently read an article where I believe it was Germany that was expecting higher costs of their vehicles because the energy it took to make the glass parts, was going to be more expensive because of the war. So, there's also all these little intricacies that are kind of connecting 4 or 5 different, industries and affecting everybody around us. So.
It's amazing how everything affects everything else. Just a little thing, just a little change can make all the difference. We have to go to break here, Ivan. I'm talking with Ivan Momchilov. He's the director of capacity with Highway Haul. You're listening to the Truckers Network radio show on tncradio.live. Stay tuned for more coming up. Great leaders challenge their people not to stop at the first right answer. Tighten the Lug Nuts is the book that will help you move past that first right answer to be more effective, more productive, and more successful. This book serves as a blueprint that can be easily applied by leaders, entrepreneurs, truckers, owner-operators, all of us in our everyday lives. This is one of the best leadership books you can read to help you accelerate towards your personal and professional goals. Plus, a portion of the proceeds will be donated to truckerschristmasgroup.org. Visit TightenTheLugNuts.com to order your copy today. The trucking industry keeps America running thanks to the 3.36 million professional truck drivers who deliver everyday goods to 80% of American communities who rely on trucking for that last mile. The industry represents a diverse group with nearly half of drivers at 42% as minorities. Trucking Moves America Forward, or TMAF, educates the public on the essentiality of trucking by telling the story of trucking and its positive impact on our economy, communities, and lives. Learn how you can join the industry movement by visiting truckingmovesamerica.com. Welcome back to the Truckers Network radio show on tncradio.live. I'm Shelley Johnson, and I'm talking with Ivan Momchilov. He's the director of capacity with Highway Haul. We've been discussing all kinds of things that are affecting the industry, and especially the trends, and what Highway Haul does for their customers. Ivan, there's so many stats and speculations here about driver shortages that, according to the American Trucking Association, there could be 160,000 truck drivers, a shortage of that many by 2030, and a need for 1 million new drivers over the next 10 years. Did you want to talk a little bit about driver shortages also impacting some of these fluctuating trends?
Absolutely. I think it's a great statistic that you provide, and I think we just have to really think about it, right? Currently, the average age of a driver is, I think, more than a 20-year-old or a 30-year-old. So, looking that far out, I can see that being a challenge because not a lot of young people are really becoming truck drivers right now, and I think that is something we need to address. We need to talk about because I can see how we can be affected down the road by not having, and if people go through the CDL training and really going behind a wheel and really picking a career out of it. So definitely, certainly, and that's been something that's been talked about for years, I think, and we're starting to see it more and more often.
So we need more recruits.
We need more recruits. Yeah, we need more recruits, and like I said, we have a ton of experience from an asset-based side as well. And that's been a challenge for years, is really driver retention and driver vetting, and ensuring that, we're talking about all these problems with equipment, but, there's nobody behind the wheel. All of it is for nothing at the end of the day too. And it's important to really make sure that we take care of our drivers, we take care of, our owner operators, and make the industry attractive, right? Make it something that we can continue to grow over the coming years.
Well, I would say your company's making things more attractive. Drivers are going to make more money.
We're trying.
Shippers are.
We're trying. We want to make the whole experience a little more independent on their end. We're here to provide them the platform to run their business. We want to listen to them and the type of freight that they want to haul. We want to get that freight for them. It's all about the relationship and the communication, but at the same time, we want to make it easy for them to use a platform that's easy to use from a driver to a dispatcher, to anybody that's really managing a fleet. But that consistency is key. Being able to have consistent business day in and day out.
Ease of use, low learning curve, and very transparent. That sounds
very transparent. Yeah,
yep,
absolutely.
Where do people find more information about your company if they want to reach out to see what you can do for them?
Yeah, highwayhaul.com. It's HWYHAUL.com, or they can reach out to me directly. My email is ivan@highwayhaul.com as well. And yeah, if anybody's looking into our website, you can get signed up directly through there. It's a pretty quick process. And once you're in our system, you can view our freight, you can book your own freight, you can assign your own drivers. You can do a lot. A very easy to use platform, whether that's through an app or even our portal online.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you provide custom solutions? I mean, if somebody has something that you haven't encountered? Okay.
Absolutely. And I think that's where this industry is fun, is doing things that are a little bit extraordinary or not, special projects, special handling. I think that's where we can all thrive. And it's always a good challenge.
Which is a good thing. Where are you folks located?
So we are actually located in Santa Clara, California. This is where our developing team are and some of our leadership, but we do have boots on the ground. We have an office down in Mission, Texas, where we have a lot of strategic carrier partners. And, we have a couple other, right around the Midwest, we have a hub as well. But yeah, we're hitting essentially all the major hubs, specifically from the produce side of things. And we do have a centralized location as well.
Excellent. And your website again?
Highwayhaul.com. That's HWYHAUL.com.
Very cool. I love your homepage, by the way. It's a
Thank you.
Visual
Appreciate that.
with the bridge and everything going on. It really draws you in.
Thank you so much, Ellie.
Very, very nice. I've been talking with Ivan Momchilov. He's the Director of Capacity with Highway Haul. This is the Truckers Network radio show on TNCRadio.live. Definitely stay tuned for more. We've got some great information, great entertainment coming up this evening right here on TNCRadio.live. Thank you for listening to another great interview on TNCRadio.live and the Truckers Network radio show. All of the material you hear on TNCRadio.live, on our website, our broadcasts, or our podcasts are copyrighted. There can be no distribution without the express consent of TNCRadio.live and its partners. For inquiries, write us at info@tncradio.live. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast of the Truckers Network radio show.